Of course, when some of these allegations surface in the media and on various forums, they found their way into Parliament, where a lot of discussions and debates have happened in a number of committees. For example, around public enterprises, allegations of state capture.
That's right. Sitting through months of testimony from people, from civil servants, whistleblowers and politicians about this parallel state that was really running at the Eskom inquiry that was held by the Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee. And I think that was really the lancing of a toxic boil, because take you back to last year, it was during the Zuma administration, and these allegations had come to the surface with the Thuli Madonsela report, but they all seemed quite nebulous. And then as soon as people started testifying, one started to realize, as your previous guest said, Ivor Chipkin, just how complex and incredibly sly, and then how crude the architecture of this state looting, state capture actually was. And I think one of the problems with unraveling this giant spindle of swindle, if you like, is going to be the forensics, because it's complicated. You'll see the same names popping up. The basic foundation of it, really, which is where you need to start, and that's starting with the whistleblowers, and I think that's what the Zondo inquiry will do, is how this operated, how the state looting, a parallel state really allegedly run by the Guptas, functioned, and that was by placing people in positions of power at the very top, which was really the boards of those state-owned enterprises, and then putting on those boards very malleable, morally flexible people who are willing to make decisions at the behest of others and then take that money. So I think you'll be plodding through a lot of forensic analysis, and it's going to be sometimes very laborious and at times complex, and at other times you'll be shocked, I think, at the cynicism of how this entire parallel state actually functioned.
Annika, now we know that unlike with the parliamentary hearings, witnesses here are going to be examined by lawyers representing various parties. So the public at large might wonder what will be what are the differences between what we saw happening in Parliament, what we're going to see happening at this inquiry, and what are the powers of this inquiry? Because we know that they cannot actually bring charges against anybody at this inquiry, in this process.
That's right. I think the parliamentary inquiry had limited scope. It was only dealing with state-owned enterprises. There are meant to be other committees dealing with, for instance, mineral resources, the Mosebenzi Zwane issue that Michael Marilia was talking about, and other departments, but those haven't happened. This was really state-owned enterprises, and they were cross-examined, the witnesses, mainly whistleblowers, by Advocate Vanara, who was the evidence leader. Now you've got top lawyers who are dealing with the Commission, not just from the Commission, but also people who have interests in cross-examining people who may have been implicated. But you've got Vincent Maleka, SC, a brilliant senior counsel who's on the Commission, Paul Pretorius, SC, another very competent lawyer, and Leon Kabashe, SC, who's also a very, very good evidence leader, along with Terence Nombembe, the former Auditor General. I think the terms of reference are far wider, and also the regulations were amended to make sure that you can plead the fifth, if you like. We don't call it that here, it's an American term, but you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to answer questions that could incriminate you in any prosecution. And the charges have also been amended it says here, the rules were amended to make testimony before it in criminal proceedings, with the exception of where a witness may incriminate herself, allowed. So if you incriminate yourself, that cannot be used in criminal proceedings. This Commission of Inquiry has got the power to make recommendations for prosecution, but does not have the power to institute criminal proceedings. And bundles of evidence from the Eskom inquiry have been sent to the Zondo Commission. I'm sure a lot of that will be used, but you can remain silent, and all the Commission of Inquiry can really do is make recommendations. And I think that this is going to be more of a political tool than a legal one, because it's going to really shine a light on how the Zuma administration And as I say, this parallel state that was allowed to run at the same time, and that toxic looting was allowed rather than leading to any criminal prosecutions. And you can ask me why.
Yeah, the terms of reference are very clear. As you were talking there, I was just scrolling down the Government Gazette where it outlined those top 9 terms of reference. Before we let you go, Annika, very briefly, you mentioned that there's going to be a lot of forensic investigation that's been going. Any chances that there might be some delays in this process, in this inquiry?
Well, we got a briefing from the Hawks last week, and that really is that they're looking into 8 state capture investigations, and one of the big problems that they have is that the commercial crimes unit, I don't think they have one chartered accountant in that commercial crimes unit. All the Hawks have any forensic capability. These are very complicated crimes, and why the group, you can't call them the Gupta group because they haven't been charged yet, apart from Duduzane Zuma and some people involved in the Estina Dairy Farm scandal, is that when you look at the accounts, for instance, when you look at some of the payments, for instance, the prepayments to Tegeta, some of the consulting fees, at first glance, while they may look very large, you think to yourself, oh, perhaps they needed this help from Trillion or these other consulting firms, and then you realize that they actually didn't do anything for that money, or that the cost of the coal was hugely inflated. So you need to go back and do your checks and balances. And some of the names of these big forensic houses have been tarnished and implicated themselves in state capture. So who do you actually use to unpack and dismantle this building, this edifice, if you like, of state capture? It's a tricky one.